Hello students, in this lecture we're going to begin to look at the neuron and the anatomy of neurons. Neurons are very long-lived, they have a very high metabolic rate, and it's the neurons that will be carrying the electrical signals throughout the brain and throughout the body. Here is a typical neuron. It starts off with, notice here you have the cell body. Here are the dendrites. The dendrites will be the receptive regions. This will be where the neurotransmitters are located. Here is the axon hillock. This eventually will be where the electrical impulse, the action potential, is actually created. Here is what's called the axon, and that electrical impulse will then be traveling down the axon. Here are the axon terminals. The axon terminals, this is the secretory region. It's from the axon terminals that neurotransmitters will be released. And then the neurotransmitters will be crossing what's called a synaptic cleft, binding to the next neuron in a chain and stimulating the next neuron. Here's the myelin sheath. This is insulation around the axon. Notice in between the myelin sheaths are what are called nodes or revere. Very importantly here, that there is only one-way transmission of electrical impulses in neurons. So the action potential will always start at the axon hillock near the cell body, and the action potential, the electrical impulse, will travel down the axon to the axon terminals, where it then will eventually cause the release of a neurotransmitter. So again, the cell body, this is where the biosynthesis of the cells occurring. This is where various proteins are being made and where the energy is being produced that keeps the cell alive. The axon hillock is where the action potentials will begin. The dendrites, they're the receptive region of the neuron, and they'll have the neurotransmitter receptors, and they will be creating something called graded potentials, small electrical changes that will eventually lead to an actual electrical impulse, an action potential. The axon is what conducts the electrical impulse down along the neuron, away from the cell body to the axon terminals. And then the axon terminal, this is the secretory region of the neuron. When the electrical impulse, the action potential, gets to the axon terminal, it would cause the release of neurotransmitters, and those neurotransmitters can then either excite or inhibit the next neuron in the chain. The myelin sheath, this is a protein-lipid sheath that it works to insulate the axon, and very importantly, it increases the speed of the nerve impulses and the speed of transmission of the electrical impulses down the axon. And in between the myelin sheaths are the nodes or revere. And literally what happens is that the electrical impulse will jump from node to move down the action potential. So once again, here we have the axon. Here's the cell body. Here are the dendrites. The action potential will move down the axon to the axon terminal, which then will eventually release the neurotransmitter. We have the myelin sheath serving as insulation, and the nodes or revere, in which the action potential, the electrical impulse, will move from node to node to node down the axon. Thank you.